Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's been about a week for anyone that watches me consistently. Uh, Hi, I guess. It's been a busy past couple days. Couple weeks. Between me getting out of school, getting a job, my sister's graduation, working on this YouTube stuff. It's been busy. And I haven't just been sitting around doing nothing, so stem your misconceptions. Alright, so I posted a tweet which I deleted a little while ago, but I basically said, when YouTubers make a video about how they almost died and it's like usually clickbait? Well, I said that I almost died, and it's not clickbait, and that's true. So, anyway, I guess I'll just tell the story, because this happened about a week ago. It's pretty fresh in my mind. It was pretty scary, and I legit almost died. So, let's get right into it. So I'm new to fishing and stuff like that. I'm just kind of getting into it, just getting acquainted with all the knots, and all the rod types and different types of fishing and different types of fish, and all the regulations in the lake, and the best spots, the best time of day. There's quite a bit to fishing, and more than I think a lot of people realize just looking into it. So anyway, just getting started, and my grandpa, he fishes quite a bit, so he knows what he's doing. So this fishing trip, my grandpa and I decided that he wanted to take this boat out. Now, it's not a very big boat. It's just kind of flimsy, plasticky, and when we got to the lake, we were fishing at chain lakes. He strapped, nailed this big ass fucking motorized propeller onto the back of this flimsy ass boat. Now, I don't fish very often, so I didn't know that this was probably a bad thing. But at the time, I'm just thinking this is my grandpa. He's the master fisherman. He knows what's up. He knows what's good. So I thought, what? Let's just do it. So my mom was there, and she kind of just chilled out at the dock, and my grandpa and I loaded up all our fishing stuff, and we hopped in the boat. And the first thing I noticed was that it was super tipsy, and it was super low in the water. My grandpa and I were both pretty big guys, and this boat, I don't think it was meant for big guys. If we were both half the men that we are, then I think we wouldn't have had the problem that we had that day. But since we're very stockily built gentlemen, I guess the disaster that unfolded, that's just what happened. So this is my first fishing trip with an actual fishing license. I fished before, but it was when I was younger, and I didn't have to buy a license in Alberta. And I'm not very good at I haven't caught a fish yet, but so anyway, we go out on this boat, and I noticed that, like I said, it's low in the water. Some water's getting in. We're both sitting on opposite ends of the boat, but the front is tipping a little bit down, so some water's splashing in. But we're not going very fast, so it doesn't matter. And my grandpa, he's just learning. He's trying to figure out this propeller. I think it's his first time basically using it ever. So, we don't really have much control. So what we end up doing is we're like, fuck it, we're not going to fish off the boat because this is sketchy and rocky as hell. So we decide that we're going to drive out to this little kind of rock face along the lake and just kind of set up camp there. So we get there, we just start fishing, and like the good fisherman he is, Grandpa catches 2 within the first 5 minutes, and in my part, I break 2 rods within the first 5 minutes, so I'd say, and After we fucked around with my rods trying to get them fixed because I fucked them up so bad, Grandpa and I decided, we're just going to head back. It was about lunchtime. We're going to take the fish back, have a sandwich, and then maybe go out again. So we gathered our things and hopped back in the boat. I pushed us off. It went a little better this time. And then we started off again. And we got about, I want to say 20 yards maybe from where we started. And Grandpa kicked that propeller into high gear. And this is where things started to go downhill. Literally. So he kicked it into high gear, and I think what happened looking back was, since I was sitting at the front of the boat, it was so top heavy and he must have had the angle of the propeller wrong. So when he kicked it into high gear, it just pushed us straight down. And I remember the moment it happened, I had the fish in front of me, the rods beside me in the boat. I was sitting, I think it's called the bow at the front. One sec, coffee break. I was sitting at the front, and I remember the moment it happened, I could feel the water just rushing past my ass and flooding into the boat, and I'm like, oh my god, we're going down. And my grandpa and I both look at each other, and then boosh, we're in the water. Now I want to preface this, we both put life jackets on beforehand, so, we were safe basically. Sort of. We were sort of safe. So the thing is, my grandpa can't swim, and he's just about never been in the water. I think he's actually never been in the water, even with a life jacket. So I'm stuck in the water with my grandpa who can't swim. But the thing is that the boat flipped on its side, and the propeller was still going. Now at the moment of the flip, I tried to save the fish, because I thought the propeller would just turn off and we could save the fish, push the boat back to the water, Grandpa could hang on to the boat. That was my thought process. I'm like, we sank, this sucks, but it doesn't matter that much. Boy, was I fucking wrong. So it took me just a couple minutes, well, not even minutes, couple seconds, and I realized that we were in a far greater danger than I had first thought, because my grandpa was freaking out. So I let the fish go, and I turn around, and the motor is still going. It hasn't turned off, and the boat is just going in circles like this, sideways, with the propeller going. And my grandpa, who can't swim, his back is to the propeller. Imagine if the propeller was just behind my neck there, and it was spinning it's this massive saw blade that's right behind his head, right fucking here, and he can't swim. So there's no way that he can move out of the way of this propeller. So, I thought at this point, when I looked over and saw him with his back to the propeller, I thought 100% that he was wrapped up in that sucker, and that he was getting torn to shreds, and he was screaming he bloody was. He was screaming, I think because he was afraid of the water, but I thought that he had his arm or maybe his clothes got stuck in the propeller and he was getting torn to shreds, but thank God that wasn't the case. So since I can swim and I have the life jacket on, I try to get between Grandpa and the boat and try to push, separate him from the propeller. And it's difficult because I don't want to get my fingers chopped off. I'm not thinking this at the time though. But I'm trying to get the man who can't swim away from the boat so he doesn't get eaten by the propeller. It's really an awful situation. And he grabbed onto me. And when they say that people who can't swim will latch onto you when they're drowning, it's ultimately correct. Now, it's not my grandpa's fault. I don't blame him in any way for this, because when you're a person who's drowning like that, you just latch on to whatever you can, basically. And that thing happened to be me. So he pushed me down a little bit, but he really can't swim at all, so he couldn't really do much to me. But we did it was through our combined efforts, I'll say, that we managed to get him away from the propeller. But we still had this problem. We had this boat whose engine was now pretty much submerged. The propeller thing, all the batteries and everything, were still in the water. And it hadn't stopped. And it was still going in circles. And now this is where the second danger came in. Was because the rope that we had tied onto the boat was like in the water with us, and it could get wrapped up in the propeller. And also I had fucked up a fishing rod so bad that the fishing line was also in the water, and it could get wrapped up in the propeller. And if we were tangled up in that, like any of those lines or rope, and the propeller pulled it in, like it would just chop off a limb basically. One sec. So by this point, we managed to grab a hold of the boat, and I flip it back. I don't flip it back right ways, but I flip it upside down so the propeller's out of the water. And I'm yelling at my grandpa. I'm like, how do I turn this off? How do I turn this off? He's like, there's a switch underneath of it. There's a switch underneath of the boat you can turn off. So I'm reaching under there, and the propeller's like right here, right above my head, and I'm like looking under the water for it, and I can't see it. So we're like, shit. You know, we have this boat, we're capsized, we're flipped in the lake. So what I ended up doing, we weren't that far from the shore, like I said. So I ended up just swimming with the boat and my grandpa all the way to the shore with the propeller running. And we get to the shore, and we managed to get the propeller turned off. And crisis basically averted. In that time, there wasn't a single person along the beachfront where we were flipped, and no boat came back or forth. So even if we needed like help, it wouldn't have came. So casualties, we lost a couple rods, we lost some weights we were using. My wallet got soaked, but I have a chain attached to it, thank God. Otherwise, I would have just lost it. And my phone was dead as a doornail. You know, they say put it in rice, and I did that, and it's just fucked. It won't even turn on, it won't charge. You know, I let it sit in rice for a couple days, it's just done, so I got a new one. My grandpa's phone was pretty much fine, except for the volume was fucked on it, so he had to get a new phone too. But this is besides the point. I guess we're still stuck at the thing, so I'll tell you this part. So after we get the boat flipped, both of my grandpa are like, words verbatim, we're like, oh, holy fuck, holy shit, did we just survive that? And I'm sure it was more scary for my grandpa than it was for me, because he was afraid of drowning, even though he wouldn't with the life jacket. But he wasn't even thinking about the propeller. But it actually had hit him in the back, and he was wearing a leather coat. But he said it actually had like whapped him in the back a couple times. So that was just so scary. So we were like, so should we use the propeller to get back to where Mom is? And we both kind of just mutually agreed that we were gonna fuck that idea and just paddle it back the old-fashioned way. So that's what we did. We just paddled it back the old-fashioned way. It took about 45 minutes, whereas just motoring there took about 5. But you know, we had to do what we had to do. So we get back, we're slopping wet, our fish got away, lost our phone, near-death experience, we're pretty traumatized. So we just dried off, and then a little while later, we just went out fishing on the land, I should mention. We went out, walked out, and just did some fishing from the shore. Because we weren't going to let, you know, if something gets you down like that, you got to get back in the saddle. So we went out and fished just a little bit more. And then we came home. So yeah, that's how I almost died. You know, I didn't actually get wrapped up in the propeller and it got turned off or anything, but I feel like it was pretty damn close, and it was even closer for my grandpa. Because if any of us would have got like wrapped up in one of those ropes and the rope got in the propeller, or if I hadn't been able to separate my grandpa and the propeller, he might have got all sliced up by it. So what's the takeaway for this story? Well, if you haven't been boating for a while, maybe just start off with something that isn't motorized, maybe like a kayak or something, just something chill. And always wear your life jackets, kids. If I hadn't have been wearing my life jacket, and if my grandpa hadn't have been wearing my his life jacket, I have no doubt in my mind that that situation, one of us would have been injured really badly or would have died. Like, my grandpa could have drowned, basically, if he didn't have his life jacket there. And don't think, oh well, if something goes wrong, I can just slip it on and I'll have time to buckle it up before we hit the water. You know, that's not the case. Like, when shit hits the fan like it did with us, you know, we were just sunk like that. Like, boom, we were in the water. Like, I just had enough time to say, we're taking on water, and then we were just flipped. So, always wear your life jackets. Don't think that you have enough time to put them on, because believe me, you probably don't. And, yeah, so that was my first fishing trip with my license. Didn't catch a fish, but caught a pretty scary story. So that's all I have to say. If you guys enjoyed this story, don't be afraid to hit that like button. I'm not going to go out and try to die anymore so I can tell you any more good ones. But I do have some other stories I could tell you guys if you're interested. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.